Hello there again, my precious little ones. Welcome to my channel where only beautiful creatures, great and small, visit Miss Malicious. Saying mabuhay and hello to all my fans, friends, frenemies, lovers, chasers out there, and to those who are just here to see how beautiful I am today. Period. But before we start, don't forget to click the subscribe button below. Now, there you go. Thank you motherfucking much for this episode of Why Handsome Guys Die Single in Burma. And no, you're wrong, sisters. We are not going to talk about Kiao Mingyu, Pio Zea Tao, Hiam Myo Ao, Ao Hurazao, the four activists and artists executed by the murderous junta recently. Just so you know, our wild boys, the Tatmadaw, is busy killing people in Burma recently. For this episode of Why Handsome Guys Die Single in Burma, we are going back in the 19th century Burma. Yes, you heard it right, bitches. 19th century. The century when your sugar daddy is giving you mula every week was born. Just a disclaimer before you cancel me, I've never been to Burma and never lived during the 19th century. So, I hope we're clear on this, okay? Our handsome guy who died single in Burma for this episode is none other than the mysterious bachelor guy next door named Granville Gower Locke. Yes, girl, Locke, not Lodge. Pronounce it like Locke, like the Loch Ness Monster. Remember? You probably got the first hint on the background of our handsome guy who died in Burma in the 19th century. Yes, he was Scottish. Me, Miss Malicious, have questions about our dead single guy here. Why Granville was single? How did he die? Why in Burma? Who killed him? Where are the remains? Where is the body? How about his family? Were they abusive? So many questions, but we'll try to answer these on this episode. Shall we? Some basic facts about our handsome single dead guy, Granville Gower Locke. Chav Guy was born on the 28th of February, 1813, and reliable sources tell me that he was born from his mother. He died on the 6th of February, 1853, and the reliable sources told me too that his heart just stopped beating. Yes. The moral of the story here, bitches, is here. Don't wait for your 40 to live your life to the fullest. If you want to slap your enemy tomorrow, slap her yesterday, as you might end up dead on your 39th. You're welcome. For starter, Granville was a very lucky man. Like the usual stories of successful cis white men born with silver spoon in their mouths. In Britain, success in life was easy for him, served in a silver platter. Or was it in a china? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Granville traveled the world, like literally traveled the world. Like they don't have any border controls at that time, or simply Britain owned the world. Yeah. Our guy here been to South America, China, Southeast Asia, you name it, bitches. This is the kind of white guy you swipe right on Tinder because bio says been to blah blah numbers of countries and still counting. Yes, it's worth noting too that our boy here was from a wealthy and powerful family from Drylaw, northwest of Edinburgh. Yes, bitch, you pronounce it like Edinburgh, not Edinburgh. Patel, not pretty. Might send you back to the boat, hunty. I'm not being malicious here, but I'd like to ask, why was he in Burma, of all places? Accounts said that he was shot in Dono Bay near Irrawaddy River and died 2 days later. But who killed him? That is the question. Why, and why? We'll try to find Granville's killer and the motives behind the killing. On this episode, just be patient with me, okay? For us to identify the killer and the motives, we have to go back 253 years earlier in London. Yes, London, during the reign of the never been fucked, never been kissed Queen Lizzie I, when the bitch gave a charter for the creation of East India Company in 1600s. Now you're going to ask me, Miss Malicious, what's a company 253 years earlier got to do with the death of our Scottish boy here? Well, trust my process, bitches, because we are on our way there. Let's start with the East India Company, shall we? Okay, good. The keyword here, sisters, is here. India. Yes, India. My best friend never been fucked, never been kissed. Queen Lizzie I created the company so that this group of English merchants could trade and do business in India. At first, it was just business, factories, trading. But after several decades, since the first EIC ship to land in India in 1608, it had become a powerful company. So powerful that it builds its own huge military warship and that it could actually wage war another country, which actually it did. I'm not being malicious here and I'm not trying to be rude, but I'll say it otherwise. EIC made England and later Britain wealthy through a massive colonial plunder of India for almost 2.5 centuries. Poor India, baby, plundered. My ex-boyfriend from uni, William Dalrymple, wrote about the history of EIC in his book, The Anarchy, the Relentless Rise of East India Company. Do you know the word loot? Well, according to William, it was one of the first Hindustani word that entered English language that literally translates as, yes, you heard it right, plunder. Okay, so EIC made England and Britain rich. And with this comes the rise of the rich. You know, the real rich that you could see now on the telly and smell their perfume across the country. Because we all know in Britain, you do not become rich by working hard or be clever enough to become rich or by robbing the Bank of England. You have to be born rich from rich vagina or vajayjay, if you will. Or in the case of Granville's family, you have to be in India. Don't worry, we are almost there. Just be patient, okay? Now, the EIC had created rich families, right? Another ex-boyfriend of mine, David Gilmour, hi David, wrote about how the rich got their wealth from plundering India's resources for almost 300 years. My David's book is called British in India. David said that businessmen, aristocrats, adventurers, soldiers, and even ordinary bureaucrats, whenever they lost their fortune, like in gambling, mismanagement, or could no longer keep up with their lifestyle, for 3 centuries, they looked up to India as a way to rebuild their family's fortune. It's like the modern version of migrants who would come to Western countries to seek for better life, work, and money. And of course, bring those back home in the form of remittance. You know, bitch, I don't really believe that there's such a thing as economic migrants because migrants are just simply migrants. Full stop. But if you will push the concept of economic migrants, the British from the 300 years or so were the first economic migrants in India, bringing back to Britain not remittances but plundered wealth. Now you know, bitch. Now you know. Okay, where was I? Yup, my brows. Now, my clever ex-boyfriend wrote in his book about the clan of our dead single guy, Granville. Don't worry, we are on our way there. Patience is a virtue. Okay? Listen up, bitches, because here's the motherfucking tea, okay? Granville's family and clan, well, they lost their wealth. Boom, gone, extinguished. Their family's wealth ended with Granville's grandfather, George Locke of Drylock. George died poor in 1877. Not poor, poor, like you poor moving from Morrison to Iceland a week before your paycheck. He was bankrupt. He sold his ancestors' estate near Edinburgh and died before his 40s. The reason for this was because the family had accounted so much debt due to George's political activities. His eldest son, Granville's father, followed his father's path. He too entered politics. I'm not being malicious here, but y'all are familiar to the story when the younger generation of an old rich family started to return to the glory of the generations before them and then was forced by their elders to work hard and find ways to bring back the glory to the family. I'm not being malicious here again, but that's the story of the Locks. The younger generations of the Locks resurrected the family's glory and they were successful. But imagine the pressure. The toxic family members you block on Facebook telling you to do this and that, abandon your dreams and follow this path. Imagine the kind of childhood Granville had. Imagine how the later Locks did it. Well, here's my ex-boyfriend David Gilmour again enumerating how the Locks successfully resurrected the family's glory. Sons of George became MPs. There was an admiral, became civil servant, and director of, listen to this, East India Company. Remember that if you're just a son of poor grocer in Peckham Street, bitch, you cannot enter and get a job inside East India Company unless you have a backer inside, usually family members and relatives, or friends of your rich parents. It's like the toxic but exclusive inbreeding gay sauna at 12 noon where all of you are bottoms and you have no other choice but to swallow each other's poison just to get by. 30 of George's male descendants built their career in India, in the army, doctors, traders, and engineers. If the internet was invented in the late 18th century, I bet one of the Locks was an influencer. Imagine the force, the pressure of bringing the glory of the family back. And you have no other ways to do that but to go up, acquire more wealth, and go to India. The young Granville then had decided to pursue a peculiar path to help regain the family's glory, military. I am not being malicious here by saying that he was probably abused and pressured at an early age to help resurrect the family's glory. But at the age of 13, Granville entered the Navy. He was 19 when he passed the exam. 19 was the year I first opened my Grinder account. A year later, at 20, he was promoted to a lieutenant. And at the age of 24, he was already commanding a ship. At 24, honey, I was caught by the police cruising at Hampstead Heath when I was 24. The fuck? At 28, he went to China and published a book at his early 30s. He was 39 years old when commanded the frigate HMS Winchester during the Second Burmese War. He was almost 40 when he was killed. At 40, mind you, I could be a retired queen, a happy housewife of a rich Tory. It must be a very, very traumatic childhood for the young Granville. He never even had the time to look for a girlfriend or boyfriend for that matter, and was left to wonk his white, wealthy, and Scottish dick up to his death. Our main character here was only 10 years old when the Burmese Empire attempted to annex Chittagong by occupying an island owned by East India Company. This was the start of the First Anglo-Burmese War, which of course Britain won, but almost spent between 5 to 13 million pounds. Imagine the business of war was as older than Queen Lizzie II. May she rest in peace. Yeah. Winning the war means Burma, or some parts of it, would be under the British rule. For several decades until the Burmese independence, the country was ruled by Britain through India. Granville, our boy here, he was the captain of the Navy fighting one of the three Burmese wars. Like seriously, I'm not being malicious here, but boy, why are you there? So, this is the story that I gathered during Granville's last days. During the Second Anglo-Burmese War, he was the frigate HMS Winchester. The admiral died and we don't know why. Maybe he accidentally swallowed a spoon and the Commodore was elsewhere and we don't know where was he. Maybe cruising around, we don't know. And then the task of keeping the Irrawaddy River clear from Burmese freedom fighters was left to Granville. But the Burmese, being from Burma, was successful in blocking the river. Granville led the naval and military expedition. You know, I'm not being malicious here or whatever, but I think that time he was probably thinking of winning this war and then get a promotion to a higher position and get his family to become wealthy, influential, or powerful. It was the trauma all over again. So he walked into the Burmese jungle like the superhero that he was, and then ambushed by the Burmese freedom fighters, shot in the body. He probably screamed, "Ugh, ah, and ouch." We don't know. We don't know, bitch. He then fell on a Burmese soil and decided not to breathe forever for 2 days later. He was single. I am not being malicious here, but he could probably gay or not even. He might be just happy being single or ghosted by his date, traumatized by relationships, or worse, an incel. Jane, the bitch from Winchester, once admonished, and I quote, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife." End quote. No! Not our boy here, Granville. Girl, not our boy here. His unmarried remains were buried in Yangon together with the remains of officers and men of HMS Winchester. There was a monument of him inside St. Paul's Cathedral in London because handsome dead single guys who died in someone else's garden needed a memorial. So, who killed our chav guy here, Captain Granville? And why did he die in Burma? We are not being malicious here, but yes, you are correct. That killed him. No, no, no. Miss Malicious is saying that the moral of the story is not that if you are single and handsome, stay away from Burma. Not that. Okay. Very good. See you all, little ones, until the next episode. Bye for now. Yeah.
Kumaria, introduction ni Kumare, walang makikisali. Alas 12 ng tanghali, gusto ko na magpadali. Anong laban mo? Isa ka lamang bitch. Di mo lang alam, ang kalaban mo ay bad bitch. Round 12, ihihila ang pahinga. Round 2 sa'yo, ba't hindi ka na makahinga? Sulutera bitch, kala mo mukhang manika. Wanna be like me? Lumunok ka ng protina. Oh, yes, bakit ganon? Gusto mo kong higita pero ganyan itsura mo. Mukhang di ka naliligo, balita mo pati mo. Huwag ka na magpabango, ang asin ng puki mo. Damn girl,